Good to go.
Okay.
Perfect. Hello and welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. My name is Chief Biko, and this is week 5 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. Today we have Chief Quietwater as well as Chief Blackcoat. And here, as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American, since we are the American. And first, we'll go ahead and start off with the 12 steps being read by Chief Blackcoat. And I'll go ahead and share my screen for you. Is it showing in you all's in?
I'll see that yet, Chief. I can go ahead and read them off. Want me to just go ahead and read them?
Yeah, if you got them up there.
Yeah, I got them with me. All right, so 13-week practical program. There we go. Action for each American prisoner of war. Step 1, learn about the states or the states your family originated from. Step 2, who established that state. Step 3, what tribal confederacy had jurisdiction over the area prior to the European. Ask all nonprofit organizations you attend, what's your position on reparations? They either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3. In addition, field trips to APOW landmarks in that city, county, and state are needed. Don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Avoid spending money with any small businesses that don't hire your people, gas stations, nail supply, subways, corner stores, etc. All businesses need operating cash. Spend money with American businesses. All other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. The U.S. government is bankrupt, and the Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The U.S. dollar isn't backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971. The Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debts and taxes. American prisoners of war no longer have faith in the U.S. government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Scroll up just a little bit. Teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. Have them learn about an American inventor. Have them know about our heroes. They should know about the European that conquered the state you live in. They should know the nation of people prior to the European invasion militarily and culturally. Practicing these steps will educate us on our land, where you're claiming America, and attaches us to the history and laws of the United States government. Every state American prisoners of war live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, one physical recorder will bring us together for our common cause. All right, so we always do which step stands out today. If we can scroll back to the top of the page. What are we feeling this week? We'll just go ahead and start with step 11. Teach your kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. That'll be the importance for me this week. And just, having them know about American inventors. Pretty much anything that comes with the land, having our children know about it attaches them to the land, and they can embrace their history and embrace being an American once we understand what really went down. So number 11, teaching our kids 1 hour a day. Those kids will grow and eventually teach their kids, and then eventually we'll get back on track to being the Americans. So I'm thinking number 11 I'm feeling most likely this week.
I would say for me this week is number 12. Basically, what we've been doing all this time is doing our best to just practice all of these steps and understanding what we need to do to break away from the indoctrination of what has been instilled in us, you know, for as long as we can remember. So I think number 12 is important because we are sharing the information, going through everything every week. And like you said, highlighting different inventors and things of that nature. So just being on a somewhat public platform to share the information so other people can know.
For me, I would say kind of stands out the most this week. Probably be one this week. So just learning about, the state or states your family originated from. Learning about what that area was called or who actually controlled that area prior to the European. Just rooting yourself on this land. I think it's like the foundation that we can kind of build off of. Because again, we always know we're getting told, so many different things, but just being able to trace yourself back to a specific place on this land and then kind of go from there will really help open your eyes into regards about just how important this land is and that we actually come from this land. So we should actually be, fighting for our right to this land. So I would just say number one for me this week. Next, we will go ahead and have Chief Quietwater with this week's American Inventor.
Okay, so this week's inventor is Samuel R. Scottron, which is Scottron. He was born February 1841, died October 14th, 1908. The patent number is patent number 76253. Patent date is 3/31/1868. He was born in Philadelphia, pretty much lived in New York for the remainder of his life. He received an engineering degree from Cooper Union in 1878. So he had a lot on him, actually. He began his career as a barber, and because of that, he made a special mirror bracket that allowed you to kind of see yourself kind of from all different angles, like the front, the back, the sides, and everything. And they were called the Scottron's mirrors. And not only did he have that invention, he also had 4 other inventions. One was the curtain rod, which everyone pretty much has used a curtain rod before. The other one was an adjustable window cornice, a pole tip, and a supporting bracket for the window cornice. And the one interesting thing about him is that not only did he invent these several patented inventions, he also came up with a company. He invented a company that actually manufactured all of his inventions, which is something I don't think that we actually have ran into with any of the inventors that we have read about. So I thought that was a good piece of information. And the manufacturing company was called Scottron Manufacturing Company. And another interesting point about him is that he was Lena Horne's uncle. It was her mother's brother. So I thought that was very interesting. So he had a lot going on back in the 1840s through the early 1900s.
That's an excellent invention for this week. Just kind of want to show everybody a picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it now.
Yeah.
I think they still use that today in hospitals.
Oh, really?
I think like those reflective type of glasses. I'm not sure what that's for though.
And I definitely see this still being used on like my timeline. I see people like, if you're trying to learn how to cut your own hair, they're gonna have mirrors and things of that nature. So that's dope. And you said he actually had the manufacturing being done underneath his company.
Absolutely. Yep. He started a manufacturing company to manufacture his own inventions.
Wow,
So he
Wow.
kept everything in-house.
good.
Right.
So it may be possible, I would like to probably do a little bit more research to see if his actual family is still benefiting, because he did take that extra step to manufacture the products.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Mm.
I'll go ahead and jump into this week's Dr. Woodson quote. And this week I went ahead and selected number 5. Go ahead and share my screen so you all can see it. And number 5 reads, real education means to inspire people to live more abundantly, to learn to begin with life as they find it and make it better. But the instruction so far given Negroes in colleges and universities has worked to the contrary. In most cases, such graduates have merely increased the number of malcontents who offer no program for changing the undesirable conditions about which they complain. One should rely upon protests only when it is supported by a constructive program. And that kind of just stood out to me. This week, I was watching a Roland Martin video, and he mentioned something about, I forget who the person said it, but he's basically saying how the reason that we were even able to get, I believe, Derek Chauvin and some of the other officers even having a court case regarding, of course, George Floyd's murder was because of protests. And one of the ladies had said that's disgusting, which it actually was. And I completely agree with her, because I'm like, okay, why do we have to go above and beyond for something that is supposed to be easily implemented within the system in regards to law? So it kind of just, struck a chord with me in regards to that, just because, again, we seem to rely upon that all the time, protests, but we don't seem to have anything constructive on our end that we're doing to kind of like combat that. So like having our own thing, like, okay, either you're going to do this or we're going to do this with our own program, versus either you're going to do this or we're just going to do nothing because we have nothing to fall back on. So that kind of just struck a chord with me this week. Next, we'll have Chief Quietwater with the legal definitions as well as Maroon historical points. And I should have it shared. Is this Maroon historical points? Yeah, okay.
I have them here.
You have them up there? Okay.
I have them. Okay, so I'll start off with the legal definitions. Okay. So number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, person, usually a soldier who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. Number 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. And so the Maroon historical points, number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, Maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, Maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, Maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Excellent. And last but not least, before we jump back into the Curtis Act, I always want to make sure we're pulling up the Constitution. Again, this is the foundation in which this government was founded upon. So we just like to highlight the contradictions, the hypocrisy that this current government pretty much rules by or stands by, that doesn't correlate with its founding document. So we got Article 1, Section 10, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So as we always reiterate every week, like on step 10, which within our 12 steps for recovery, it highlights that gold and silver were taken out of the United States. So it's no longer backed by gold and silver, nothing tangible. So with that being said, basically just running strictly off the faith of its citizens. Because obviously here it says that the only thing that would be actual used for payment towards that will be gold and silver. So if we're not using that, and if the money that we are using isn't backed by that, then are we ever going to be actually paying off any debts? Or are we just circulating or kicking the can down the road per se? That's just the first hypocrisy that we pretty much notate. Then we go down to Article 6, where it states that the supreme law of the land is the treaty. So this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution and laws in the state, to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again, this is clearly just stating that the supreme law of the land is the treaty. But we just saw a clip not too long ago. I believe it was something that was aired on maybe Thursday or Wednesday regarding pretty much what we've been studying, which is American history. They had pretty much the 5 tribes had a meeting with Congress, and they was talking about how certain treaties weren't being upheld. Certain treaties, they were actually picking and choosing what they wanted to uphold within them. So again, that in itself, they have to have a meeting or some type of hearing just to say that, hey, these treaties aren't being upheld. Is the treaty really the supreme law of the land? So that's just a question we got to continue to ask ourselves underneath this government.
Good point out. Because if it was,
go ahead, Bill.
No, you good, bro. Nope, I already, you said what I was about to repeat you.
And lastly, Article 2, Section 2, I believe, just stating the powers of the president. So the power of the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states. So again, as we continue to reiterate, of course, we know the commander-in-chief or the president is the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy, but also of the militia. So we have to be mindful of that whenever we're dealing with this particular government. If we're seeing people who we don't recognize, or they're unidentified, or they don't look like any type of quote unquote law enforcement, they could be militia. And if we know who activates the militia, then it's going to just make everything kind of become full circle, become more clear for us as we continue to move forward. Let's see here. I'll pull up the document. And I know last week we stopped off at the beginning or top of page 5. Let me see. Okay. Can everybody kind of see it? Make it up a little bigger. Exceedingly. So anybody want to jump or start us off this week? We start here at the exceedingly large amount.
I got you. So top of page, what page is this? I got you. Exceedingly large amount of additional work imposed upon the office by the act referred to renders it absolutely essential that additional force should be provided immediately. Within the last decade, the work of this office has fully doubled without corresponding increase in the clerical force. The extent of the Indian service, its growth, and its causes, and the causes that led to it are noticed in a report made by Mr. Sherman, chairman of the House Committee of Indian Affairs, to Congress on January 5th, 1897, House Report number 2383, 44th Congress, second session. As to its extent, the report says, the extent of the Indian Department is not generally appreciated. While the Bureau in Washington is small, the outside department is almost extensive, with the country itself extending as it does from the Gulf of California to the Great Lakes, and from Florida to the Puget Sound, and even beyond. It embraces territory greater in the extent if taken together, than all of the New England states, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland combined, and an Indian population of nearby or of nearly, if not quite, 25,000 or 250,000. The condition, character, and habits of the Indians occupying the territory are almost are almost as various as the tribes themselves. The occupations of those in one part of the country and entirely dismemorial to the occupations of these in another, depending largely upon their surroundings. In some sections, they excel as fishermen, and others stock rising, and others agriculture. I'll stop right there.
Now, that was a lot in that those two paragraphs, but definitely
Correct.
just showed the mass amount of Americans we had, or they had pretty much roped off in this new quote unquote Indian territory. Kind of states here, it embraces greater than pretty much that whole New England territory.
Right.
So as he kind of listed off, we think about Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. That's pretty much the whole of East Coast. We want to, think about it like that. And they're saying the quantity of people amassed that. So 250,000 Americans were roped off into this new Indian territory. Now we still know there's much more still east of the Mississippi, which would be considered, where we come from, since our grandparents, weren't roped off, never made that voyage on the Trail of Tears. So that just kind of shows the mass amount of people that were on this land prior to the European, and still, majority more. So that was just something that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, you pretty much summed that one up. Just seeing those numbers, 250,000. That's a lot of people. So it's going to take a big force to get that many people cordoned off or roped off. So I like that highlight of it. Actually getting into the numbers of how many people they're observing, and now we see the numbers as quarter millions.
Yeah, and it seems like the numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we've read throughout all of these treaties and documents. The numbers just keep multiplying and multiplying, and bigger masses of land is being occupied as well.
Yep.
And also kind of just highlights the various different lives each individual tribes and band of tribes kind of lived. Like you said, some were skilled in fishing, raising stock, agriculture. So like we all did various different things. So it just shows the diversity too amongst every tribe. That was pretty cool, man.
And things we got away from today. Not a lot of us do those things.
Yeah, that's great point.
Made us dependent on the system. Now the fish come out of the grocery store.
Yeah, like skills that we've been innate with, natural abilities per se, that no longer are even like being thought about, or keeping that passed down, because everything's been pretty much handed to us under the current system. Great point there.
I'll keep going.
All right.
As to its growth and the causes thereof, the report says, get my daughter, the increase in the number of the government schools and the development of these Indian school systems has contributed very largely, perhaps more than anything else, to increase the duties of the commissioners of Indian Affairs. Without going into the history of schoolwork among the Indians, it may be significant to show that without going into the history of the school, the growth. Yeah, I keep losing it. I got it. The growth of Indian schools in a single decade. 10 years ago, there were 5 large training schools. Today, there are 32. In 1886, there were 211 Indian schools. 214 Indian schools of all descriptions. In 1860, there were 293. For the first fiscal year in 1886, the amount appropriated for Indian education outside of treaty provisions was, in round numbers, 1,211,000. In 1896, it had swelled to 2,517,000. In the year to, I'm sorry.
Now I'm about to say, should we stop right there and kind of unpack
Okay.
that for a minute? That's crazy, and kind of just highlight what we've been seeing within the I guess the Indian Treaty, and I believe the Dawes Act as well, but definitely the Indian Treaty, just in regards to them saying you got to have the missionaries and you got to have the school system within these areas, and they just kind of highlight how just rapidly growing.
Right.
That was crazy to me. They even said
And
something.
again, how they're accounting for every single thing that their reports are very detailed in regards to what they're tracking,
Correct. Saying 5 large training schools, like again, just showing that indoctrination process, how much resources is going into, that indoctrination process. That way they don't have to continue to fight. At least these Americans will work on the other ones as we, continue to grow or pretty much continue to grow. But we're going to at least make sure we get these 250,000 docile. So that's crazy. And they pouring like resources. So I guess if I'm not even sure what this amount would be. I probably have to look this up. But
Today?
You know what I'm saying? Like today, how much that would be. Like we see how much the United States is just giving Ukraine, to fight this war.
Right.
So I don't know how much 2.5 million in 1896 would be currently.
And that's on education. That's
exactly
the understanding of knowing that we have to educate them out of who they are. That's the only way. Like the dropping the bag. That's crazy.
Yeah, you can't beat them. You just got to like mess with the brain, mess with their mind.
All right, you want to pick up where I left off, Biko?
Yeah, I can go ahead. In the year to come, if the policy indicated by the last Congress is to be carried out with respect to educating Indian pupils under contract, there will still be a further increase in government schools and consequently a still greater demand upon the commissioner and his office. The allotment of lands, which practically began under the Act of 1887 and has been carried on quite extensively ever since, has brought to the commissioner additional care and responsibility which were hardly contemplated in 1832. The most difficult and intricate questions growing out of this are constantly arising, requiring much time, patience, and legal skill to determine. Indeed, the whole question of Indian lands, since so many of them have been thrown upon for settlement, has assumed an importance of no slight magnitude. So I just kind of stopped there and kind of unpack what I got from it. Basically just saying how rapidly they seem to not have really planned for how difficult this transition would be. Getting all of these different tribes of people into one territory and having it, having them become indoctrinated to become pretty much underneath that U.S. Control, basically becoming bona fide U.S. citizens, if you want to say.
Right.
It seemed like they have a much more difficulty than they expected, like much more resources is being poured into this than they could ever imagine. And it kind of just highlights back to this paragraph here. Like, look, we ain't spend this much on getting our peasants
right
from, Europe to like, this is beyond what we even expected. And it kind of highlights 1832, that's around the same time as the American Removal Act.
Right.
So it's saying like, okay, this is 57 years now. We're still like the magnitude is still unimaginable, like what we're trying to do. So it shows like that task of them having to do that, and our people kind of pushing back whichever way I guess they possibly can.
Exactly. But like you said, they dumped a lot of money into the education because they knew that would be the only way that they would be able to indoctrinate all those people.
Or just occupy the land. You know, if anybody
Right,
knows
right,
what's really going on,
right.
that's why we so docile today.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll finish off this paragraph here. The responsibility arising out of financial transactions is heavy and increasing, and the questions arising therefrom are important and often perplexing. The total expenditure for the Indian service for 1832 was in round numbers, $1,350,000. That for 1895 aggregated nearly $10 million. The expenditure for the current fiscal year it is estimated, reach $12 million. The responsibility for this large expenditure rests almost wholly upon the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, as it is as a rule upon his recommendation and under his direction that it is made. So again, kind of just following in alignment with what we've been saying. They're pouring a lot of resources into this.
Yeah, so now it's like at this point, with all this money coming in, they're talking about, okay, of course, the Commissioner of the Indian Affairs is a part of the United States government. They're asking for all this money and they're supplying it. So it's like, you know, who's supplying all these funds to continue this large project that you guys didn't even think was imaginable? So when we reading things like this, all these dollars falling in the sky, where's it coming from? Like, the money not just coming out the ground. Who's sponsoring all this? Like $12 million for certain projects. That's when you start asking the questions. Okay, where this money coming from?
Oh, really? Any thoughts on that, Chief Quietwater?
I pretty much agree. That's a large amount of money. I agree on that aspect of it.
For sure. And it kind of just comes back, I guess, to them roping them off in certain lands and, you know, taking whatever natural resources they found from them and say, okay, we can pour a percentage of that into, you know, making sure you get them indoctrinated. But outside of that, you know, it's like, okay, where they, again, getting this money from? Where are they coming up with these numbers? And yet that Commissioner of Indian Affairs, he's underneath the Secretary of Interior. So he's having to still get approved by the Secretary of Interior, which then gets that check cut from Congress. So
Gotcha.
right now he looking like, okay, I ain't getting paid enough to be having to deal with all this type of stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
And it really kind of just shows the responsibility and the power that not only the Commissioner of Indian Affairs has, but the Secretary of Interior as well. Because it's like, okay, we're having to control the people actually.
They're calling all the shots.
Exactly. So if we were to just say, you know what, free reign wouldn't be in the United States because they just gonna move back to where they was. So kind of just shows like that power dynamic as well.
Right. You want me to pick up there?
Yeah, right here on the to properly.
Okay. To properly administer the variety of affairs growing out of these conditions is extremely difficult with the force now at the command of this office. But when the burdens imposed by the Curtis Bill are added, it will be a physical impossibility. So they're basically saying let me read that again. To properly administer the variety of affairs growing out of these conditions is extremely difficult with the force now at the command of this office. But when the burdens imposed by the Curtis Bill are added, it will be physically impossible. Be a physical impossibility. Okay. Are they saying like we're saying because of the magnitude of the amount of people? I think that's why they're feeling that it's probably going to be impossible because it's just adding layers to the to how they're going to handle the whole situation.
Correct. Sounds like they coming towards the end of this bill. They understand that it's going to be almost impossible to actually act out this project.
Mhm.
But it seems like they're up for the challenge for it. That's why I was
Right,
asking
right.
when Chief Biko was speaking about the commissioner being paid. At this point, I don't think nobody's getting paid. I think this is like an all-in.
It's like just a total mission that they
Yeah.
have to just get the job done.
The job
Okay.
done.
A number of additional copyists are needed, and above all, a number of clerks with sufficient experience and ability to deal with the difficult and intricate questions constantly arising. So again, there's pushback, I think, that's happening, that they don't have the capacity to address everything. There will be 128 track books to be made up from plats of surveys covering the territory of 5 civilized tribes. This will require at least 8 copyists several months to do. The financial transactions will be largely increased as payments which have heretofore been made by the tribal governments are now to be made through the office. In addition, the care of the schools, which have heretofore been conducted by the tribes themselves, will add materially to the work, the volume of which altogether will be enormously increased. Estimate has therefore been made for 10 copyists and 6 clerks for 6 months or until January 30th next. So it just seems like they're overwhelmed with this whole play that they're trying to orchestrate. And they're having to go back to the books to basically look at the accounting and see how they need to adjust to be able to pay for these copyists and clerks that they have to add.
Right, like what is it? Going blank, not a stat sheet, but you know how when you lay all your responsibilities out and they're looking at the numbers.
Right.
Budget for the next year.
Exactly.
Readjusting things. I had looked up what that 2.5 million was in 1896, what it would be today, and it said it would be about 88 million.
Wow.
88.
Yeah, 88 million dollars in purchasing power today.
Wow.
That sounds about right.
So,
yeah.
Just so you know how much they were pouring into
right.
Like you said, this program.
Okay. From the data on hand, therefore, the following estimate has been prepared and is submitted. Pay of employees, Indian Territory to June next, is that $4,000? Incidental and traveling expenses to June 30th next, $1,500. Salary and expenses of revenue inspectors to June 30 next is $3,000. Salary and expenses of 2 school supervisors to June 30 next, $2,500. Additional employees, this office to June 30 next, $9,300. Salary, wait a minute, no. Yeah, salary and expenses, town site commission, $30,000. Locating 98th Meridian, $6,300. To begin allotments, $50,000 with a total of $106,600. So they're basically breaking down the numbers of what it's going to take to continue and complete this project that they have at hand. Okay. With the view of having this amount appropriated, a form of appropriation has been prepared and is herewith submitted with the recommendation that it be submitted to Congress with urgent request that it be adopted and passed by both houses at the earliest practicable moment, either in the form of joint resolution or a special act. It is suggested that the former is more expeditious. Very respectfully, W.A. Jones, Commissioner, the Secretary of the Interior. Anybody have any feedback on that?
Sounds like they really want to get this stuff going. Seems like from what we read, their initial act, which would have been that Dawes Act, had a lot of flaws in it in regards to just what they were accounting for. So they're trying to make sure they can get these things passed quickly within the House. That way they can get more resources to actually, I guess, complete their plan originally.
Right. Mhm.
I'm in alignment with that one too. It looks like this Curtis bill was like an update, and now we actually have the numbers of each. Or they crunch the numbers for each allotment as far as whatever this project requires. But yeah, from this one, seeing those numbers, how large the territory they were trying to rope off and actually dedicate their project to. They're talking about the entire East Coast. That stuck out most to me about this document from what I've read today.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had to say the same, just showing that how large scale this project was, how many of our people were, within this military work camp, pretty much, like
Right.
being off in this small area, and saying that majority of there's more people in this area than there are in that whole New England territory. Like Chief Blacko said, that's kind of what kind of just stuck out the most, just showing how
Yeah.
many people in this confined area they had. That's what I took away from it.
Okay.
Wade Jones, Commissioner.
Do you want to see that again? Who the commissioner was?
I was just reading just that fine print, but now we're good. We're good, Chief. We got the documents.
It was one little small piece at the bottom.
Oh yeah. We do have that proposed joint resolution. Let's see here. I'm not gonna finish off this last bit.
Okay.
Proposed joint resolution to enable the Commissioner of Indian Affairs under the direction of the Secretary of Interior to carry out an act entitled an act for the protection of the people of the Indian Territory and for other purposes, approved June 28th, 1898, namely for general incidental expenses of the Office of the United States Indian Inspector and United States Indian Agent in the Indian Territory for the remainder of the current fiscal year, including pay of employees and traveling expenses of said agent in connection with his duties under said act, for salaries and expenses of revenue inspectors and 2 supervisors of Indian schools for the same period, and for salaries and expenses of the commission to lay out town sites $41,000 for pay of additional employees in the Office of the Commissioner of Indian Affairs during the present fiscal year to be appointed under such rules and regulations and subject to such examination as the Secretary of Interior may prescribe. $9,300 for the purpose of surveying, marking, and locating the 98th meridian of west longitude, $6,300, and to enable the commission to negotiate with the 5 civilized tribes to begin to allot lands in severalty as provided in said act, $50,000. In all, $106,600. So pretty much just summarize what we broke down in that last accounting here. Just broke it down.
So it looks like there was a joint resolution rather than, what did they reference it as? So this is the actual resolution, I'm assuming.
Makes sense.
Got you. Okay,
Saying that last thing you read is said either by joint resolution or special.
right,
Okay. So
okay,
it's like they did end up going with the former, which would have been that joint resolution.
mhm,
So good call out there.
okay. Well, the Curtis Act was definitely detailed in regards to the accounting portion of it and
Sure.
just breaking down the duties of the Secretary of the Interior. I think that was important, learning how much control the Secretary of the Interior had. So it was a very interesting act to read.
For sure. Now it kind of makes sense too, why they would be pretty much in line to take over the presidency if it were to, fall down
Right.
that low, because they had the responsibility of occupying the actual American.
Exactly, exactly.
So again, there wouldn't be anything established as far as that US government if they hadn't done so, because it would still be pretty much ran by the actual tribes of this land.
Hmm.
So definitely, it's
Yeah,
good
so
to
they
see.
definitely played a very important part throughout the whole process.
Mhm. For sure, sure.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that, Chief Black Coat?
No, just bobbing off y'all listening. So again, just that document, seeing how they execute it, and just I'm always just picturing it in my head as a movie. These people are moving pieces, and everybody knows their position. So they are literally fully acting out their position, no matter which way it is. And us reading these documents, we see it's a laid out plan to occupy the entire East Coast. That takes a lot of funds, but each person pretty much acted on their position, and that's what I'm taking from that. Just everybody knew their position. There's no way they, if it was physically impossible to,
Right.
it actually being completed, that everybody pretty much knew their positions and did it well.
That's a great point. Everybody played their role and understood their role. They had one common goal, no matter how difficult it may have been.
Right.
The money wasn't adding up. It was like, you know what? We know what end goal is. We'll worry about that other stuff later.
Exactly.
This is what needs to be done. So
Mm.
it's something we could kind of take from and learn from, just in regards to our group.
Just getting to the end goal. It's not gonna be a straight line all the time. It's not gonna always work. Everyone is not gonna always agree, but we have to have that same mindset in order to accomplish what needs to accomplish for us to get things done, and we just don't have that.
Right.
We haven't been, put in the back of the wall yet. So like our backs are against the wall. Their
Yeah.
backs were against the wall. There was no go back to Europe. So
Right. Exactly.
just to see the plan laid out like that, though, is pretty not only important, but it just shows that these people aren't just operating; they're thinking.
Right. Mhm. Okay.
Absolutely. That was a good read. That we can see how they amended some things from that Dolls Act. And then next week we'll jump into another one. So we're gonna keep this thing going, keep building, working through the timeline.
All right. Good class tonight, guys.
Sorry, yes, ma'am.
Have a good one.
All right, y'all.